live
Good day, love.
on the YouTubes.
Can we bring YouTube back a little? Like tilting the camera up a little bit for YouTube. Please. Good day. There we go. Let's show them the whole thing. Welcome. Welcome to this moment, loves.
Facebook,
Good
right?
day, loves.
Okay.
Instagram, we're live on all three. We are streaming, and this is the Holistic Freedom Secrets podcast. And we are here on YouTube. Good day.
Hey.
Facebook. Hey, loves.
You.
And Instagram. So, welcome. This is episode 13, and
Yes,
it's
indeed.
Fuel Day. So, today's all about fueling ourselves up with good stuff, goodness, and really being mindful of what we're taking in to ourselves.
Not just what we're taking in, but when we're taking certain things in, what it's doing, what it's supporting, how we can structure our meals, our snacks, and our fasting time, our not snacking time, in order to properly fuel and obviously to balance our hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So as Coach Tensi was alluding to, today's topic, cycle syncing for optimal nutrition, foods to balance your hormones. And before we get into the episode, just a few housekeeping things. If you could please, for us, like, subscribe, comment, turn on the notifications, and share out. Like, subscribe, comment, notify yourself that you that we're live and that we have another episode out, things like that, so that you can see whenever we go live, and so that the algorithm knows two things: one, that you want to see more of this content, and two, that other people should see more of this content, so that we can continue to make it happen.
Yeah. So why are we talking about cycle syncing? Why is it important to sync our cycles with what's going on? Well, this is especially important for women, but it's also helpful for men to know, because especially if you have a woman that you know, that you care for, to help her understand, or to understand what's going on with her, is very helpful, since we follow a monthly hormonal cycle versus a 24-hour hormonal cycle that men follow. This is really important for us to have learned at a young age, because we could have avoided a lot of really crazy health conditions that are popping up even more after 2020. And that's like more instances of autoimmune disease. It's crazy. So everything from stuff pertaining to the reproductive system, like the PCOS and the fibroids and all sorts of hormonal imbalances, can be directly influenced by the foods that we're eating. When we eat them is very important for women, because certain foods support certain hormones. And just like for those that have ever experienced like a hormonal intervention, like being put on the pill or something like that, they try and time it so that they can synthetically give these fake hormones to your body at certain times, to try to mimic a hormonal cycle imbalance. But the unfortunate thing is that the long-term effects of stuff like that is it will continue to bring your body more and more out of balance, while masking temporarily the symptoms. But some other symptoms you'll notice keep getting worse and worse. Like there's still heavy bleeding. There's other conditions that may surface, like fibroids, like PCOS. There's a toxicity that begins in the body with all the harsh chemicals. Your body doesn't recognize any synthetic hormones. And they don't recognize hormones from the opposite sex either. It just all triggers these mechanisms where, if our body is out of balance, it continuously tries to get back into balance. And if it can't do that, with the foods that we're giving it, with the timing that we're giving it these foods, then it can easily go into mental imbalances, emotional imbalances like anxiety, like even depression, like even as severe, especially when women start to lose their hormones closer to in the 40s with perimenopause and menopause. That's when women are most at risk for suicidal ideation. So we really need to pay more attention to this as early as we can. And the more that it becomes a habit, the more ease that it brings. Like for the longest time, I was fasting. I was, eating healthy and, moving the body, exercising, and doing all the things that I knew on my journey were going to be healthy and helpful for me. But I did not have this piece of syncing it to my cycle and syncing it to the hormones. And so I still experienced the really bad brain fog and I didn't know why. Like I'm doing all the things, it's frustrating, and still experienced PMS or really bad anxiety. Not as bad as when I was eating processed foods, but still experiencing all of the things and even bloating. So this is stuff that happens, and we touched on it a little bit in the last episode, episode 12 for Cleanse Day. But this is what happens when our hormones are out of balance. And so today we're going to dive into some ways to support the different sex hormones and the timing of when to bring them in and out.
Absolutely. So we have 3 hormones that we are going to cover and the foods that help support them. Now, Ufulu Child, we are going to be coming from a vegetarian, vegan framework, but that doesn't mean that these are the only foods. It's just some of the stuff. We can't give you all of the information, right? We have to also balance the information with what we can test in our own home, and we don't eat meat. So these foods are available to everybody, but some of the information in regard to chicken, beef, pork, and whatnot, you'll have to look up on your own, right?
Or message us and I can point you to some resources for the options that would be the most beneficial to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Put it in the comments, things like that. Reach out, send a DM
Yes.
on Instagram. But as far as this episode goes, maybe pull 2 tabs up. You have us up and you have another tab up looking up the benefits of chicken breast. So, okay. As far as the first um, sex hormone that we want to cover, what foods support estrogen? Well, one of the first things that we have to talk about is citrus fruits. Citrus fruits. That includes things like limes, oranges.
Not so much oranges because estrogen don't like high sugar. So grapefruits.
Pardon me, grapefruits.
Lemons.
Yeah, pineapple.
Not pineapple. That's
Not
a
pineapple.
tropical fruit. Sorry.
It's citrus though, right?
It's not a citrus fruit.
Oh, okay. I thought it was because of the stringiness and the tanginess.
But also berries are not citrus fruits, but berries also support estrogen because they're the fruits that are lower on the glycemic index. Estrogen, she loves to play, but she gets skittish when there's stuff that goes on that will spike your blood sugar. So she likes high fat, she likes low carb.
Let's try and name 3 citrus fruits. I got limes. I know that's correct. I don't want to say lemons because that's the same thing basically.
Lemons, limes, and grapefruits.
That's it. Okay. Well, the citrus fruits very limited, but they're high in vitamin C, antioxidants, and support estrogen production. Next, we have dark leafy greens. Dark leafy greens, which
like the dinosaur kale.
There's a bunch.
Yeah, all of the dark leafy greens.
I would be very surprised if spinach was not on the list, if certain lettuces were not on the list.
Yeah, just not iceberg lettuce.
Not iceberg. Yeah, that's very lightly colored leafy green. Pardon me.
Yeah, that's kind of like plasticky.
Yeah. But dark leafy greens, so they're rich in vitamins and minerals, and aid in or support estrogen detoxification.
Yeah.
So to help detox the
excess.
Thank you. Next, we have sea moss. Sea mosses.
Yes.
You got your Irish moss, your bladderwrack,
Purple and gold.
purple and gold, Irish moss, sea moss. They're packed with nutrients, over 100 or over 90, pardon me, nutrients, and they support your overall hormonal health as well as your overall health in general. I would highly suggest to anybody out there, go ahead and get you some sea moss, as
Yes.
long as it's high quality and as long as you can verify that it's not heavily processed.
And one thing to look out for is sometimes they'll have on the label that there's a potential for there to be heavy metal poisoning in it, so like contaminated with lead. Sometimes that's on the label. Don't get that sea moss.
Don't get that sea moss.
Don't get
That's
that
not the
sea
sea
moss
moss for
love.
you.
Instead, there is a specific brand that I look at, but honestly, get as close to natural practices of gardening as possible, not using any pesticides or insecticides or any chemicals in the process is great. So it might be labeled organic, but it might not have that official certification and still follow those practices. As long as it's following those practices, you're good. If you can get as close to wild crafted of it as well, that's going to be good, something to look out for. And also in its whole form. So not so much in a powder, unless you just really have to get something quick. That's okay. But the best would be if it's still whole and it's raw and it's at least wild crafted and not using any chemicals.
Mhm. Next, we have flax seeds.
But real quick, with sea moss,
Okay.
it specifically helps regulate the thyroid. And so that's one of the things that is really big with regulating your hormones. So if you have any sort of hormonal condition or autoimmune condition or anything where you notice your hormones are out of balance, so that would be if you experience bloating or struggle losing weight or a brain fog, estrogen's out of balance. If
Yeah.
you notice any anxiety, PMS, or spotting, or any heavy periods, hair loss, progesterone's out of balance. And if you notice, if you're a woman and you're starting to grow little hairs, or you're like on your chin or somewhere like that, and you're noticing like you're low or to no sex drive, or like your motivation, like you don't really feel motivated to do anything, then testosterone is probably a little out of balance for you. So these are some things to keep in mind whenever we're thinking of sea moss. We want to help support bring it back into balance, and they'll do that because of all the trace minerals, and it's just packed with so many good minerals
Super
and quote
packed.
unquote vitamins, all those combinations that we need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So next we have flax seeds. Flax seeds are actually an estrogenic, I think number one on the list of estrogenics, and they help balance, pardon me, estrogen levels.
Yeah, so it contains something called lignans, which will either, so if your estrogen's too low, it'll bring it up. If your estrogen's too high, it'll help break that down so that your body can fully process it and sweep it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So it'll balance those levels out. And then avocado and other healthy fats. Avocados help support hormone production,
Yeah.
just like citrus fruits.
And why avocados? Well, the fats in it, it helps supports the brain. It's a whole food still. It's packed with fiber. It's packed with healthy fats that your body needs. And some people think that, fats make people fat, and that's what, everyone thought in the 80s or whatever. And some people still think that. It's not true. Okay, bad fats make you fat because they have these chemicals added into
And sugar.
them. Yeah, called obesogens, these chemicals. And good fats help support health, just health overall. Good fats help support health, and avocado is one of them.
Absolutely. So next, let's talk about the fuel that supports progesterone.
Yes, so just like with estrogen, because we need healthy fats, all of the healthy seeds and nuts are going to be good for that. Also for progesterone too. But specifically to boost progesterone even more, there's one seed that shines real bright, and that's pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds. And do you want to talk a little bit more about pumpkin seeds?
Pumpkin
Why?
seeds, they're high in magnesium, they're high in zinc, and they support progesterone production. Right? They help you produce it, help your body produce it. Pardon me. Both males and females produce progesterone, but women produce progesterone way in much higher quantities, and it affects their mood and function and things like that.
Yeah.
Women way more than men.
So when we're thinking about when to start eating foods that support estrogen versus progesterone versus testosterone, let's start talking about this a little bit. Do you want to like wait until we finish this list for progesterone and then dive in, or
Dive into what?
like when to sort of switch into different foods to support which hormone in the cycle?
When
Do you
the
have a
when?
preference?
Yeah, no, the when after the list. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, for
let's
sure.
for the list then, some other foods that specifically support progesterone would be like tropical fruits. And so some examples would be bananas, mangoes, papaya. If you like pineapple, I mean, cool. I would not necessarily go to juices so much. Instead, I feel like it's really good to eat the whole food because your body's getting the fiber, it's getting the when you eat into something, it's starting to trigger all the mechanisms and things and combinations that your body needs in order to optimally digest it in the eating process of you putting the whole thing in your mouth.
Now, if you must go to the juice because you're a beginner, you're just now starting to move into whole foods, take some, leave it in your mouth for a few seconds, and then go ahead and swallow. And it'll help trigger the same mechanisms in the mouth that start the digestive process, that make your body go through the whole digestive process instead of just the last 5 steps.
And for juices, focus on the dark green juices. So get those leafy greens in there, all the different kinds, and citrus fruits, or dark leafy greens like gingers and things like that. And the
ginger's a dark leafy green.
Ginger.
Oh, sorry.
Things like that added in.
Y'all probably got that the first time. I need a little help sometimes.
Green apple, yada yada.
Cool. So we got.
And then
sorry. And then.
Yeah, that's all I was gonna say.
Okay, we got pumpkin seeds. We got tropical fruits. Also root vegetables. Yes. Root vegetables, very, very important to help with progesterone production. They're nutrient dense. They support your adrenal function, and all of that is crucial for progesterone production. So
especially yams, sweet potatoes, turnips, fennel is a spice, but pumpkin. You can squashes. It's all the different squashes as well. They might not be technically above the ground. They're not necessarily root vegetable, but really honing in on things like that, or even beets if your body's feeling called to beets. I know if you're strictly alkaline, then you may not do the pumpkin or the beets. If you're strictly non-hybrid, we'll say alkaline, then there's those caveats, but these are actually really, really supportive depending on what you're open to.
Yeah.
Also, progesterone loves the hard bite into type veggies. So that would be like Brussels sprouts. That would be like
cauliflower,
broccoli, anything that you bite into. So also
carrot,
cabbage. Cabbage would be a good example too. If it's carrot, could be, but sometimes people, if they're non-hybrid, they want something else. Checking out Dr. Sebi's list as well. He has some vegetables in there. Just think through, like, hey, it's one of those veggies where if you bit into it, there's like this big crunch and it's not all watery. Getting some of those in there too.
Yeah, and also if you don't know who Dr. Sebi is, look him up. Dr. space Sebi. Very, very important person in regard to fuel knowledge. Quinoa, a complete protein, that supports overall hormone health. So it supports all three of the sex hormones: testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen. Quinoa is very good, and it's easy to find, and it's easy to season and cook and eat the way that you like it. So quinoa, you can put quinoa in the list for all three of these hormones.
Yeah. And similar thing when it comes to like legumes, like chickpeas, you can put those in all three of these lists too, to support all these hormones.
Awesome. So next we have testosterone, and again we have dark leafy greens, rich in magnesium, and they support uh, hormone production. So they support testosterone production.
Yeah.
Quinoa again, and then we also have lentils. Not a lot of people know what to do with lentils. Even if you buy them, sometimes they just kind of sit in the pantry for a while because you're like, well, what am I going to do with this? Um, so I definitely want you to teach them what to do with lentils in a future episode. But lentils, when you do make them and you do, make them in a way that you like to eat them, and first you soak them, things like that. They're high in protein and iron and support overall energy and muscle mass. Pretty much anything that supports muscle mass is going to support your testosterone levels.
Hmm.
Next, we have hemp seeds and chia seeds, rich in omega-3 fatty acids,
Yeah.
help support the production of testosterone. More pumpkin seeds, again, right? The revisiting of pumpkin seeds. So some of these foods you can see they overlap, especially when it comes to the veggies. They overlap.
Yeah. And the main thing for testosterone is this particular hormone, like, just needs stuff that will help support muscle building and also needs, so that's like everything that has protein. So when we think plant-based protein, thinking hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds, thinking lentils are super high in them, even chickpeas are fairly good. um, and then when we're thinking, um, also the liver, like, you have to lower your toxin load. Like, you can't, um, it will be very skittish if you're consuming things that have chemicals, whether it's like in the beauty products or in your foods. Like, reading those ingredient labels, it really becomes important for building testosterone. Also, things like rest will be very important for rebuilding testosterone. But yeah, there are some other things to note as well, but these are some of the big things. And one last thing before we move on, um, that I want to mention is how these all dance together. So when to incorporate them in, when to bring them out in your cycle is going to be very helpful to know, because that's crucial to time it well. So especially if you are still getting your monthly bleed, still cycling in that way, then we want to make sure that we're incorporating things early on in the cycle that will support estrogen. So in phase one, which is like a power up phase, that's when starting your cycle with that first day of needing like feminine care products, feminine hygiene products, and the first bleed to around day 10 or however it lasts for you before you start ovulating. That's the timing where we need to focus on building up estrogen. So that's when you need to support your gut health as well. Things that will support your gut health beyond the list that I mentioned, in order to help bring estrogen in, there's like your fermented foods, like think kimchi, think
Sauerkraut.
sauerkraut, think kefir, or like there's certain brands of vegan yogurt or whatever that don't have a lot of the stuff that we talked about in episode 3 that you want to like not do.
Avoid.
Also those crunchy veggies. So even artichoke hearts are really good stuff that will help support your body, like parsley, the Brussels sprouts, shallots, even olives. Just see what they're soaked in. you know and then your the stuff that will also support your the good bugs, good gut bugs. Oh, they're not really bugs, but the good microorganisms in your gut to support your immune system and your microbiome in there. That would be like your bitters, like dandelion,
Burdock root,
burdock
onion,
roots, kind of
garlic.
garlic, ginger, chickpeas,
hummus.
yeah, and look at the ingredient label, right? Leeks, stuff like that will be very helpful for that. And if you like asparagus, rock out with that. So that's some stuff to keep in mind, building up in that first power phase. And then when we get into ovulation, we need to start switching gears. So this is when we're starting to eat for progesterone. So now, before you were low carb, high fat vibes, with adding in those extra minerals, now we need to focus more so on getting those nature's carbs in. So that's the tropical fruits, that's all of the grains and seeds and things that we mentioned before. Even, if you like spelt or those ancient grains as well, you can incorporate those. And then one thing with progesterone is you just really cannot do anything that will stress out the body. So she doesn't really like a lot of coffee, things like that. But in the next phase, you can also shift gears again. So we started with estrogen, focusing on her, and then we shift gears when you're ovulating to progesterone. And then when we're ovulating also, this is when we would incorporate stuff for building up testosterone. So those foods that are packed with protein, here's where you also want to support your liver health in order to support testosterone. So that's when you're not going to, focus on things that will overload your body. So instead, things like kale is when you'd bring those in, dandelion greens again, dill, arugula, those citrus, bitter citrus fruits, turmeric, ginger, stuff like that are all great for the liver. And for that focus, you might also incorporate some spices like cardamom, cinnamon, and all that as well. So in after ovulation, that's when your hormones start to dip again, and that's when it's good to start to focus on estrogen again. So we're shifting back to the lower carb foods to support estrogen. And after that little span of time, before that week, before your cycle starts again, when your cycle is um,
A week away.
that's when we're back into the last phase of your monthly cycle, and that's the nurture phase. So that's around, it tends to be between day 20 to day 30. And in that phase is when we really want to focus on progesterone again, and even more so than ever before, because progesterone needs to be higher than everything else at this time. And this is when we'll switch back to those foods as well. One last thing to keep in mind, if we have time.
We don't.
I don't know. Okay, so we'll probably cover in another episode. There's some specifics on about the minimums of how many of what type of food group you wanna get in at the different cycles.
Absolutely, but we will cover that in either the next fuel episode or in a future fuel episode. Of course, as you already know, thank you so much for tuning in to the Holistic Freedom Secrets podcast. Your hosts, Coach Soul and Coach Tensi. Subscribe, like, comment everything. Comment your story, comment what you want to learn about, comment a takeaway, comment everything. And share out and turn on the notifications so that you know when we're going live, so that you know that we just did go live and there's an episode up there for you to watch.
Yeah, share below, like what's a food that we listed that will help support you. We listed some symptoms of when we know when the different hormones are out of balance, and some foods that support them. What do you think that you might be needing now in terms of you and your specific cycle, whether you have a regular monthly cycle with the bleed or not?
All right, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Take good care, Lux.